Hello, welcome to Workplace Wake Up. I'm Jen Shaw. Every week, I spend about 15 minutes covering key legal developments, introducing you to interesting guests, and providing some entertainment to start your workday. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Welcome to the podcast. This is our last podcast for 2024. We have decided that we are not going to post on Christmas Day, and we are not going to post on New Year's Day. That way, y'all don't have to worry about listening to us. You can have your family and you can do whatever you're going to do and not worry about missing anything. And it gives our team and John, our amazing podcast engineer, time to do what they need to do. So I'm going to miss you for 2 weeks, but I think it's a good thing. So remember, no podcast on the 25th and no podcast on January 1st. So today's the last one of the year. I cannot believe it. And we're going to do end of the year tune-up, okay? I've talked to you all year about important HR issues, right? We've talked about new laws. We've talked about court decisions. We've talked about all kinds of stuff. I want to go through a little checklist for you of the things you need to make sure you are doing for the new year. I know some of these are going to seem really obvious, but I cannot tell you how many of our clients miss them, and then they end up paying the price for it down the road. So first thing is, if you have not already participated in our annual legal update, this is our 24th annual update. You need to participate. It's 3 hours, 3.5 hours, chock full of information about the new laws in California, the new federal developments, court decisions, agency decisions, you name it, we've got it. We have another session in January, so you should sign up for it right away. It always sells out because people realize after the new year that they've got to get their house in order. So definitely get in on the legal update. Second of all, in terms of payroll, I want to make sure you've got all your information for your W-2s, right? So you can issue your W-2s in a timely manner. Remember, with your former employees who worked for you in 2024 but are no longer with you or will not be there when they receive a W-2, you want to make sure you have updated information. If you need it, there's a new address, for example, in your system, or make sure the payroll company has it. Second of all, on payroll, want to make sure you're making the proper deductions. We've had some clients recently that have had some payroll mishaps with medical deductions and 401k or retirement deductions. They have not been taking the correct amounts out. If you do not audit those deductions regularly, you need to, and certainly do that by the end of the year. Make sure that the amount you are taking out or the amount you are adding to someone's retirement account, for example, or putting in the cafeteria plan or whatever you're doing in their flexible spending plan, you have it properly documented and you know that you're doing the right amounts, okay? The third things are your posters. You know you're going to have new posters for 2025. We recommend you get the all-in-one poster. If you're a California employer, we love the Cal Chambers poster. It's terrific, and they will give you updates. You should all belong to the chamber if you don't. So make sure you get your all-in-one posters. Remember that even the all-in-one posters do have some information that you need to fill out to make sure that you've got all the correct updated information. So please be sure you do that. Do not put up blank posters. Also, remember, these posters have to be posted. So leaving them in your office or behind the oven in the kitchen of your restaurant are not going to cover it. You've got to get those posters up. If you've got remote workers, you've got to find a way to give them those posters. You can send them a set. You can send them a shrinky-dink version that are small so that they can have them in email. You can post them on your intranet. Do whatever you want to do, but make sure that for those remote workers, they've got access to that information. Now, related to posters is your handbook and your policies and procedures. Many of you I know participated in Julia Melnico-Ensel's handbook session that we had a couple of weeks back. We talked a lot about the new things you need for 2025, but also the general practices with respect to handbooks and policies. It is critical that the policies you have in your organization are the ones you are following. So if you have practices or policies or procedures that you are not following, but they are still in writing, they are still in a written document that is given to employees, you need to say those are no longer in effect. Okay, you only want to have your policies and procedures that are current. So as tedious as it is at this time of the year, you need to go through your policies and your protocols and your procedures with a very critical eye and think about, okay, how would an employee interpret this? Am I saying what I mean? Is there something I'm not saying that I should be? Am I saying too much? For example, we reviewed a handbook recently where there were 14 pages dedicated to cleaning up the office, where the Swifters are located, what days the janitors come in, where to put your recycling, maybe a little much, okay? So look at these policies and procedures, your manuals, your handbooks, look at them critically. Make sure that they say what you want them to say and that they mean what you want them to mean, okay? Critically important. All right, training. Remember, you have all sorts of mandatory training obligations now. You've got your equal employment opportunity compliance. You've got wage hour compliance if you want to take advantage of the reforms to the Private Attorney General's Act this year to reduce your wage hour liability. You've got workplace violence prevention obligations since July 1 of this year, 2024. So there is a lot of training that you need to do. Now, it used to be that HR departments wanted to do all their training in-house. Then they found that to be overwhelming, so then they outsourced all of their training. But then they felt that wasn't effective because it didn't have sort of the culture of the organization. We have found that you can do well having some in-house training and some training facilitated by external folks. One of the things we do when we do training is make sure that we really understand the applicable policies and the culture of the organization so we can ensure that the proper message is being communicated. And that is what you want. You never want to buy an off-the-shelf training session from a vendor that didn't create those materials for your workforce. All right. So if you're not going to do it internally, you don't have the resources, you don't have the time, you don't have the budget, that is fine. But make sure if you choose an external vendor, you choose one like Shaw Law Group that will dedicate the time necessary to create materials that reflect your actual practices and are consistent with your philosophy. All right. Okay. The sixth thing I want you to think about is how you are managing performance. Okay. So first of all, are you getting your performance evaluations done? Do you do them at the end of the year? We do. So we're in the middle of working on those. You may do them on anniversary dates. Your year may end on June 30th. No judgment on any of those fronts, but you need to be managing performance in writing. I have read a number of articles and blog posts lately where folks are suggesting that performance evaluations are sort of outdated and you don't need to spend your time doing them. I could not disagree more. You have to give your employees feedback. They have to know what is working and what is not working. And if you don't give it to them, they can't figure it out for themselves most of the time. We always have a blind spot or a weak spot to our own deficiencies. I guess I shouldn't say always, frequently. Let me say that. So making sure you have your performance management processes in place, that everybody knows how it works, everybody knows how to give input, how to make sure that they feel the process is fair and effective. That is all going to be a critical component to what you are doing for 2025. The next thing I want you to look at are your leaves of absence and your reasonable accommodation protocols. I know you have policies and practices that deal with leaves of absence and reasonable accommodation. But this is different than number 4, reviewing those policies in your handbook and your manuals and your procedures. This is actually the nuts and bolts. I want to make sure you know, okay, Jennifer's on leave. She's using healthcare. She needs to pay the premium. Okay, where does the premium get sent to? How are we tracking it? How do we know that she's paid every premium she's supposed to? right? Those are the kinds of things we need to be looking at from nuts and bolts on the ground. So take a look at your leave of absence and your reasonable accommodation protocols. Do they work for you? Are they clear? Do they make sense? All of that is very important to ensuring that you're not going to face a lawsuit for mismanaging a leave of absence or reasonable accommodation issue. And you're probably aware that these are the biggest claims out there. Juries cannot stand reasonable accommodation or leave of absence cases. They feel very sorry for the employees and the applicants, and they literally want employers to pay many, many times. So you are not going to necessarily get a fair shake before a jury when you're dealing with leaves of absence and reasonable accommodations, because we're human beings. We are moved by challenging and difficult situations. So when a plaintiff testifies that they've had medical issues and they've asked for accommodations and they didn't get them, they're not going to necessarily care about the documentation you have of the 2 meetings you had with the employee, right? You've got to have a full bore, thorough process where you can track what's going on in each part, each component of that process. All right. Number 8, your workplace violence prevention program. If you don't have your program in place, you better get it in place. It was due on July 1, 2024. We have packages that we do for our clients and friends that is an all-in-one fee where we do your plan, we do your training, we get it all done for you. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to me by email or phone, and I'm happy to help you with that. But either way, you need to do it, okay? You've got to get your workplace violence prevention program in place. That includes a plan, training, all of those components we've talked about in the past. So very, very important. We're going to be doing a webinar early next year about the obligations under the Workplace Violence Prevention Program law and what you need to be doing to make sure that everybody's up to date, but at least get this on your agenda. Number 9 is I want you to think about gratitude. What kinds of activities can you do in 2025 to show your employees that you appreciate them? Now, let's face it, you're not going to appreciate every employee because some of them are nightmares and some of them you can't deal with, okay? But most of them, if they're still in your workplace, it's because you haven't given up on them and they haven't given up on you. And a little gratitude, as we talked about recently, goes a long way. So make sure that you've got some concrete plans of how you're going to say thank you in 2025. Now, the last thing I want you to think about is probably the least fun of all of them. But number 10, I want you to think about your operations in human resources, not in the whole organization, okay? But your HR operations, what is working? What is not working? Do a post-mortem on the year. Where were your challenges? Where were the deficiencies? Where were the wins? Where did things go really, really well? Did you have an amazing, open enrollment period? Why? What was better about last year? What made it work better? What made it more efficient? These are all of the kinds of things that we need to do in HR. We need to always look at ourselves critically and think about, okay, what are the things that worked for us and what are the things that did not work for us? Where did we have some opportunity areas and some challenges that we need to deal with? Okay, that is important. It is something we mostly hate doing because it's a lot of work and it requires you to look backwards. And let's face it, as HR folks, we want to look forward. We're excited about the future. We don't want to get stuck in the past. But at the end of every year, you've got to do that careful, thorough analysis of what worked for you this year and what didn't and why. And you may not know the why yet. You may have to do some digging. You may have to ask some employees. You may need to figure out what's going on there. So first of all, number 1, sign up for that legal update. Number 2, make sure your payroll house is in order. Deductions, W-2s, etc. Number 3, get those workplace posters up. And if you're in California, don't forget that includes your wage order or orders. Number 4, your handbook, your policies, your procedures generally. Do they say what you want them to say? Do they mean what you want them to mean? Get that training handled. Not just compliance training, folks, but supervisor training. We do a lot of monthly training series for our clients where we'll have all the managers and supervisors join us once a month for a new topic. And it is so much fun, and the managers and supervisors love it. You may think about doing something like that, but you need to train your employees. They need to understand not only the EEO and workplace violence and wage hour compliance training, but also how do we communicate in our organization? How do we succeed in our organization? These are training topics that we can definitely look at. Number 6, managing performance. How are you evaluating performance? How are you managing it? Remember that performance is one factor that can affect compensation, but you want to make sure you're complying with all of those pay transparency rules that we talked about last week. Number 7, you want to look at your leaves of absence and your reasonable accommodation protocols. Again, what is working for you? What isn't? What do you wish you had? What are you constantly reaching for that you don't have available to you? Number 8, you want to make sure you get that workplace violence prevention program in place. Number 9, let's come up with some ways to show gratitude in 2025. And number 10, let's do a self-assessment of our HR department. What's the people department doing? What is working? What is not working? What changes do we need to make? What innovations might be appropriate for 2025? I know that's a long list, but as I tell you all the time, and as I tell my daughter Ella all the time, we can do hard things. So get out there, folks. Get your list together. Get cracking. You can get it done. I will see you the second Wednesday in January. Have a wonderful couple of weeks off. Don't forget to send me feedback, questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, whatever you've got. I can take it, and I would appreciate it. I want to thank you all for the most amazing year. I have had such an incredible level of professional satisfaction this year, and these podcasts are a big part of it. So thank you so much for being loyal listeners and sending me your sweet messages and letting me know how much you value and appreciate the time I spend on these. I love doing them, and I'm so happy to do it. But your messages really make a difference. So thank you so much, everyone. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, have a wonderful Christmas. The rest of you enjoy your holiday, whatever those may be. And just be careful out there, everyone. Make sure you are safe and enjoy your time. I will see you soon, right after the new year. Workplace Wake Up, including our guests and hosts, do not provide legal advice in this podcast. Do not act upon any of the information discussed in this podcast without first consulting a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to spread the word, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and/or rate and review it. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and email us at info@shawlawgroup.com.